Hello and welcome to Tech Talk Live. I am 1 minute late because, when you think you've pasted your stream key into your OBS software and you realize you didn't, that's what happened. So, just a little inside production tip for you guys. Anyway, today we're starting a new series on MODX and montage effects. It's one of the more powerful things about both of these instruments is the internal effects. They're remarkable. For one thing, a lot of people, just to kind of think about this, Yamaha makes a whole lot of different types of products. Obviously, we make digital mixing consoles, we make standalone effects processors, we have a whole R&D group that all they do is look into these things. The VCM effects, for example, virtual circuitry modeling, and some of the cool reverbs that we've had over the past, 40 years, I guess. SPX, Pro R3, RevX, and so on. Really great effects. So that's one thing. The other thing is with regard to Montage and MODX, that's very unique, at least as far as I know of any other instrument out there, is the control that you have over the effects. That's a very powerful production and musical instrument creation tool that you have in both Montage and MODX is the ability to have this real-time control. They actually can not only enhance the sound and make it sound fuller or more reverb or whatever, but we have these really cool effects in here that are like synthesis style effects. There's really unique effects that I've never seen any other instrument or DSP as far as virtual instruments, virtual effects that are out there that we have in this instrument. And then the last thing is the amount of simultaneous effects that can be ran at the same time. I make this point a lot, especially with something like Montage or MODX, either one, but let's take Montage. The fact that you can have a system reverb, a variation effect, EQs, 2 insertion effects per part, up to 17 parts. 17 parts, you say? There's not 17 parts, there's 16 parts. Well, the 17th part would be the A to D input. That's functions as a part. So they can both have 2 simultaneous insertion effects. So you think about that. That's a whole lot of effects simultaneously that this instrument is capable of, and you never get a DSP overrun or anything. It is what it is. It's one of the cool things about both Montage and MODX. MODX, you get 12 insertion effects plus that A to D, so 13 simultaneous, but still a whole lot. So, little introduction about the coolness of the effects in both of these instruments. So let's take a look at some stuff here. Some concepts. How about some concepts? Here's a concept. Thank you, Hape, if you're watching, for making the cool graphic of the SPX unit and the MG20. I added a few little things in here to point some stuff out, but let's look at, in a mixing console environment, the idea behind the main system I/O, okay? So this is what I call the studio's effects. When you go into a recording studio, they have effects that they use in their mixing console that they send to each musician. So things like reverb is a great one. How that works is they generally hook them into this aux, a send and return in an aux bus, and then you have, or rather the engineer has, sends for each of the musicians, the vocalist, the guitarist, and so on. So you generally want something like this where you have a common reverb that everybody gets send a little bit more, a little bit less, and so on. They also will send reverb into headphones that may not be recorded to the final, to the actual recording, because you don't really record with effects. Generally, you mix after the fact with effects, but people like to hear reverb in their headphones when they're singing, especially. So this is what the studio effect is. You don't own it. The musician doesn't own it. The recording studio owns it and sends to the musician. This is different than something like an insertion effect. I call these the musician's effect. So in an insertion effect, consoles like, say, this MG20 have a little tip ring sleeve and then a Y cable that does both the insert I/O for an effect. So the idea of why I call it musician's effects is because the rack mount there, or rather the guitar player, for example, shows up to the gig and has a stomp box, has distortion, whatever effects that the guitar player uses, but not everybody gets those effects. Those are inserted into the channel. They may not be physically inserted like this, that they could just be part of the guitar player's signal flow, but it is still functionally an insertion effect just for that channel. So, or rotary speaker for an organ, for example. Not everybody gets rotary speaker, but the organist needs rotary speaker because it's part of the sound. Or a boutique compressor for a vocalist. A lot of vocalists nowadays, especially professional ones, if they go to a session, sometimes they'll bring their own really nice, expensive compressor with them that they can insert because they know what that sounds like. It's a great sound, but not everybody gets that. It's an insertion effect. So, pretty good concept here. I think you got it. Well, let's take a look at the two effects now with that analogy in mind. You have Montage and MODX. Common effects is what we call that at the top of the performance. Common. This is the 16 parts underneath that. That's where those insertion effects. I consider those parts as like individual musicians. You can think of it that way. Obviously, Montage can work as a single instrument for parts, but in this case, we're kind of thinking about this sort of like a mixing console or a multi-timbral setup, let's say. So, the common level, you have these effects available to you at the common level. 14 types of reverbs, and I'm going to show you this in a second. I'll turn on my overhead camera and we'll take a look at it in Montage. The reverbs in Montage and MODX are kind of like the best of Yamaha selection is what I call it, because they do have reverbs from the SPX, the Pro R3, the RevX. There's actually one that's called the HD reverb that was designed a few years back that is probably my favorite go-to reverb. It's a high-definition reverb, and it has lots of density is what I call it. It doesn't have a lot of artifacts, although there's something about those old-school SPX reverbs that have this interesting effect that's maybe not be like what I would put on a vocal, but I love having SPX on things like guitars. In fact, I know for a fact someone like different guitar players use SPX, the old SPX 90s, in their system because of the reverb, of the chorus, of the sound of that SPX, that unit. But there's also a cool space simulator that sort of does sort of a convolution thing. I wouldn't really technically call it a convolution reverb, but it allows you to sort of define a space. It sounds different than the HDs and the SPX and the R3 and the RevX. And there's a gated and reverse reverb for things like drums or whatever, special effects. I love me a reverse gate. You've seen me use it on the YC because it has reverse gate as well. Next is those variation effects. There's 84 types of variation effects. I won't read all those to you, but you can check those out. There's a whole host of cool effects. Some ones that I'm going to cover today are going to be more of the conventional type effects. So I'll show you some of the reverbs, some of the modulation effects, flanger, phaser, some choruses, things like that. Distortion amp simulator, one of the coolest things about this product are the cool amp simulation effects. Use those all the time, VCM, and so on. We actually are going to have a Tech Talk Live where we dial in a little bit more of these tech and miscellaneous effects, especially when using it with the A to D input and live and things like that just do cool, interesting things. And then there's things that are basically synthesizer type effects, filters, wave folder, stuff like that. Master effect. Okay, so in the master effect, this is the overall effect for the entire performance. And you have 26 types that you can choose from. Some of the ones that I like to choose, the compressor types. For one thing, one of the compressor in there is a multi-band compressor, which is a great one for a mastering style effect. There's some cool lo-fi and tech effects that you can have at the master level. So those are great for live performance, no question. You can do some just really cool, trippy, interesting production style type of just sounds. Really cool stuff in the master effect. And then finally, there's a 5-band master EQ that has a selectable low and high shelving if you want to have those, and then 3 bands of fully parametric for the final thing. So you see already, this is just the common effects. What about the insertion effects? Well, there's a part insertion effect times 2 that I said on the Montage, right? And MODX, you get 12 parts plus the A to D, right? So the A to D always has 2 insertion effects. So you count that out. I mean, that's 34 simultaneous insertion effects. And the effects, the part insertion effects, are the same as the variation effects. So you have 84 types to choose from, and they are, it's just really cool. So there you go. Now, each part also has a 2-band and a 3-band EQ that works simultaneously. What I like to use the part EQ for is to really dial in where I want that part to sit in the mix. So I use it for that. But then there's also a 2-band EQ that I personally like to use in that last one over there as an additional amount of gain, because there's a little 12 up to a 12 dB, which is a whole lot of gain, that you can hit that part with if you want to gain it, or if it's a little too hot and you just want a quick way to pull it back, you can pull back by 6 or 12 dB on the part EQ every part. And then lastly, on AWM, there's a tiny little element EQ in there too that gives you a choice of a 2-band, a parametric, and a boost 6, 12, and 18. 18 dB boost, really? That's a whole lot of boost. I recommend danger when you mess with an 18 dB boost on anything, but sometimes it is helpful to have that, especially in the drum kits. That's where I'm going to show you these element EQs, because they do allow you to really tweak drum tones and bring things up in the mix and so on. So there you go. There it is. Here's a montage. Let me go to my live set here, and let's just take a look at some stuff here. So I have a very dry piano right here. So what I did with this is the CFX stage. The first thing I do when I show these things is I've basically eliminated any of the stuff that's been assigned to these assignable knobs in the super knob, because you can have things, this is one of the big things that you figure out fairly quickly. Hopefully you figure this out, that if you can't get rid of an effect that you've set the send all the way down, I'll show you this in the screen in a moment, generally it's because that effect is assigned somewhere else. And usually it's right there. It's assigned to one of these assignables. And on this particular CFX stage, I removed assignable 8, or assignable 7 actually, which was assigned to a little bit of reverb gain and a little bit of variation gain. So I take those out so I can kind of have control back to me. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to show you this right here. So here's your... And my whole reasoning for this is just to show you how the common level works and how to do reverb send per part. Okay, so check it out. Well, I was going to show something else before that. I'll come back to it in a second. I want to show the mixer again too. But let's just go here first. So here I am. Right here, I'm at the common performance level. You can see it right here where it says Edit Common Audio in the top of the screen. And I'm looking at the effects. Right now, I'm looking, I ended up at the master effect, which I have turned off, which is that cool thing. But let's take a look at the routing here. So currently I have defeated the variation effect and the master effect, so we're only focusing in on these reverbs. Now as you move down over here in the effect, you have routing, there's the variation, which is off right now, there's my reverb effect, right? Master effect and so on. Common level, top of the performance, this is where it's at. So let's take a look at some of these cool reverbs in here. Now, I'm going to use a system effect. I can use an insert effect to do this too, but I want to kind of talk into this system effect and how this works. So here I am. I've selected that. I'm going to go over here to the part level now, and you'll see right at the top in that top row, volume pan, dry level, variation, and reverb send. So right now, I got nothing. So let's add the HD Hall reverb first. And then once I get a setting up here, I'm going to change the reverbs and we can listen to the different reverbs in here. So you select right here where variation send is in here. I can either use the data wheel. I like to do this too, where I just literally click on it and say, let's do a send of 60. Let's see what that does for me. There's some reverb. Okay. Or I can increase that even more, maybe 86. So we definitely, here's my sustain pedal, have some reverb now. Now, why I was talking about this particular reverb here. Let me go back to common, and we'll take a look at this reverb again. This is the HD Hall reverb. I really love this reverb, and the reason why I like this reverb is because even if I go over here to the reverb time and I crank that all the way up, and I have now 4-second reverb time. What I say by dense is that even though I have a lot of reverb on this sound, you still hear the individual notes. That's the mark of a really great reverb. Now, granted, we got a lot of reverb, right? but you can still hear. Or if I play, faster notes or whatever, things just pop right out. It's just a great sounding reverb. I use it for lots and lots and lots of different types of music. It's my go-to main reverb. It really is. So let's switch a few of these here. I'll bring this down here to a little bit smaller. And let's go over here to, now you see also, I want to point this out before I move on because I made a big deal about this at the beginning. Do you see whenever this control assign lights up, that means that that's a parameter that can be assigned to any of the physical control. And to assign that, let's say I want to assign it over here to the, I don't know, what do I have? Let's just assign it to this assignable knob right here. You literally touch control assign, right? And then I just move that knob, but I want to show you exactly. You see that this is lit here because if I touch anything else and this goes off, okay, well, the variation effect parameter, that's not an assignable parameter. Check it out. I'll go to reverb, and whenever this light comes on, that's an assignable parameter. Assignable parameter. All of these. Okay, so they don't give you this one, but that's okay. Initial delay, I don't think you necessarily need, but you do have high ratio, high damp, EQ low and high gain of the reverb. All of those can be assigned to different controllers, and they can do different things in different ways, just the effect alone. This is a huge, important concept of really understanding both Montage and MODX is how cool this assignability is. So let's just do something simple like reverb time, touch the assignable, and move something. And now I have that set to this assignable knob 8. And you can hear I've definitely changed the reverb time. So that controllability is an important aspect of this instrument, something to really think about. Check out the articles on Yamaha Synth about effects too. There's some great ones in there about using them and how this all works. So let me go back here, and now I'm not going to talk so much, and we're just going to go through and change these different reverbs. So there's my reverb setup here. Here's the Rev X reverb. A lot of people really love the Rev X reverb. So this one, when it comes up, it has a much longer reverb time, so I'll bring it down to a common one. It's a washier reverb. I like it. It's got a nice low end to it, but you can actually adjust the low end a little bit on it too. You also have, I'll grab a few more of these, R3 reverb. And again, the presets may come up with a little bit different reverb time here, but you can adjust that right here. Notice that you also have some quick little preset offsets if you just want to grab these and say, well, I just want a large hall reverb, and it brings in some stuff to bring that in really quick. Actually, a lot of people really do love this R3 reverb. It's a great reverb. And then, of course, you have diffusion, things like that that you can set up again, and some things that are assignable to control in real time. I'll grab one more reverb here, just the SPX. This one has a high end to it that I really dig. I generally will change the SPX Hall and give it maybe a little bit. Let's open this up. So reverbs, cool reverbs. What are you going to do? Let's grab some other things here. I wanted to kind of drop here and just do a little side thing so I can show you something that I like to show people a lot, that a lot of times they just forget about it. And I forgot to show this earlier, but I'm going to show it right now. It's just a mixing. I brought up the multi-GM. It's a initialization. You can find it here, right? Sorry. All. here, category search. Sorry, I was looking at the Motif XF. Init multi-GM right here. So that's the one that I brought up for this thing here. And the only reason I'm showing this is people forget that there's this cool mixing console over here, and it gives you a visual idea of kind of how the system effects work and send levels for each part. That's the only thing I was going to show you here. And if you go to parts 1 through 16, you can see the entire parts across here. Go down here. This is parts 1 through 8 plus the A to D input digital return and the actual master strip over here. But just if you haven't seen that before, it's pretty cool to see that. It gives you a good visualization. So I forgot to show that earlier. Let's move on. How about drums? Drums are an interesting way that this works in here. So a drum kit has the same basic effect architecture, right? You have your common level, which is right here, and you have the effects for those right here, right? Reverb, variation, master EQ, so the same type of thing here. But the routing is going to work a little different in this one. Right now, all I have no effect on variation. Don't need that. I'm just going to show you how to send like something like reverb to just a snare drum and maybe a bone dry kick drum, and then I'll use the element EQ, which I talked about earlier, to maybe bring that kick drum up a little bit, because I'm going to just run it, bypass all of the effects and just have the kick drum. So check this out. I go here. I'm going to select this part level. So now we're at the part level, okay? There's your insert reverb return, how it's set up here, and it gives you this cool graphic that shows you that the 3-band EQ comes in front of the insertion effects. The 2-band EQ comes after those, right? And then you have insertion, or the reverb send, the send to the insertion effect. Envelope follower, we'll talk about that when we talk about the live effects, and then the part output, which is right here, that gives you the outputs to the USB outs or the individual outs on the montage assignable and so on. So here's what I want to do. You go over here to where it says drum key, and then you have keyboard select. So there's my drum kit, right? When you go keyboard select, you then focus in directly on whatever note you want. Now in this case, what I want to do, and you'll hear this when I change on the kick drum, I'm just going to not send it through any of the insertion effects at all. Now I can set these up in parallel. Sometimes I will set the insert A and insert B as separate effects, and I just route maybe the kick drum into an EQ maybe, or a compressor, something like that to give it more gain. Or I can send it through insert A, same way. But in this case, what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to bypass, everything by touching through. Now you notice that the level of that dropped a little bit, but that's okay. I'm going to gain it back here in a second by using an element EQ, but it's bone dry. It's not running through any of the effects whatsoever. Now here's my snare drum. Now the snare drum, you can do the same thing with this guy, insert A, insert B, and so on, right? And you hear the difference a little bit here, right? So insert A. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the common level, and I'm just going to increase the insert reverb. So bone dry kick, lots of reverb on the snare by turning that up. I can even turn it up even more by the overall send of the reverb. Okay, now let's go back to drum key. I want to show you something else that's kind of cool here. Okay, this is where I want to go to the element EQ. And you have your 2-band EQ, and one of the things that you have as a selection here, I can EQ that if I want to, which will give me some more gain at that frequency. So let's say I want to have on the parametric EQ, I'd like maybe, I don't know, say, what's a nice fat kick drum-ish area? 152? Maybe a little more than that. I might adjust the Q a bit too. Open that up. Find a frequency that I wanted to use. You can also do it like this and watch the frequency kind of change here a little bit. Okay, that's one way to do it, but you can also just go right to here, 12 boost. Up to an 18 boost, which is quite a lot. But again, you have ways to gain back things using this EQ, especially in the drums. So I use this a lot when I just want to, like, or I'll use the EQ on that kick drum. Usually I use a kick drum to kind of dial it in there, adjust things inside the kick. That's how you can kind of do some stuff. Just routing very basic things like I want more reverb on this, but I don't want any reverb on that in a kick drum. Another thing, clean fingers. So this is a completely dry, with the exception I kept the reverb on this one. So cool, very like a finger pick electric guitar, clean sound though. Why I picked this one is because, and you'll see this is 2 parts. The only thing that second part is doing is harmonics with the assignable right here. So really what we're focusing in on here is just that first part right here. So, and I want you to hear some of the effects that are just the distortion type effects in this guy. So select here, select that part, edit, keep my mic on my face, get out of the element level. So it's always good to look at that bottom to see where you're at. You can also look at the very top corner where it says edit 1, part 1, element 1, and you're like, where are my insertion effects? A lot of times people get lost in this, but this is, I'm at the very bottom basically of the performance hierarchy. I want to move up 1 level. You can either do that by just selecting the part itself or the part common area here and then select the part, but you have to go right here, common, right next to there. Now I'm looking at the entire performance, not just an individual element. Now, here is where we can find our insertion effects. And I'm going to go back up here to Insert A. And right now I don't think anything's on. I turned them all off. And I want you to hear just what happens when you go into something like this and just turn the amp simulator to the on position. So now I have a whole lot. Right now, this mix is all the way wet. I can adjust that back a little bit. But check this out. So you notice that dry wet mix is an assignable parameter. Now they won't allow you to, or rather the system doesn't do changing the amp types, but that's cool. I wouldn't want to really mess with that either. But you can hear the difference between a vintage tube, distortion, or fuzz. Let's go to vintage tube. Okay, now I'm going to move over 1. Now you can change, see, right there, amp types. So I can go to flat. Oops, let's try this. Stack. Combo. Twin. I usually use the twin a lot. Radio. A single effect. Megaphone. So let's go back here to this guy. Presence control. Bring out some high frequencies. Or make it a little darker sound. Change the output level. Give it some more And again, that's just amp simulator 1. You can go down this list. One thing I like to do is like the multi-effects one. This one, oops, I didn't mean to go that far down. One more time, multi-effects. Okay, the multi-effects is super cool because it is definitely that. It's like, any of those boutique DSP style effect boxes that are out there right now that you see guitar players moving away from the amp kind of situation. Line 6 is a perfect example of a company. I can talk about Line 6. That guys will just go to the gig and use just the Helix, and that's it, and a speaker obviously. But this is a cool kind of thing. So we have this interesting thing that's multi effects. You can turn on a wah effect with this one. I can do let's do. Just rather than set the. So you see I can assign that to a control. So if I have my, I don't think did I set it up? Is it just set up to 2? Or I'll just set it to this guy over here. I want to set control assign to the wah-wah pedal over here to this, you know. I have to give it a little bit of something, something. Change that ratio up here. Assigning those effects is so cool. Part settings, let's go back here to my effect I was looking at. So you have a pedal wah, you have a phaser switch, so I can turn on a nice wide phaser. You take off the wah effect. Multi-effects, single effect has all of these effects in there. You also hear the effect, the echo effect. So an echo effect, phaser, wah, distortion. You can select different types of drive, overdrive, crunch, and so on. I knew this was going to be a long one because there's so many effects in here to go through. That's why I'm going to hone in on a few of these and just give you sort of a taste of what you can do with these effects. So guitars. And I still have another insertion effect. Remember, I still have my system effects, so I can add more things even beyond that. And it's super cool. Super cool. What are you going to do? Last thing. I just grabbed a very simple electric piano in here, and I definitely love to show people in here. Let's go to Edit, and let's go to Effect. And right now there is an amp simulator that is assigned to this to the electric piano, but with no overdrive up. So you can assign this very quickly. So if you wanted to just put an assignable something in here to turn up the effect, like this, you know. That'll work like that. So again, that control assign, being able to do this. Plus, I could assign it to the super knob to do it, which is, I think it's already there because it's, did I assign it to it? Can't remember. How about just look in the screen? What did you assign it to? The assignable knob 8. That's what I thought I did. So I can use the super knob to control that because the super knob controls the assignables, right? Or just use this as a... So, go back to my effect in here. Let's go to a different thing other than amp simulator. I want to show you these VCM phasers. So depending on my needs, there's VCM mono and VCM stereo. If I like the VCM stereo if I really nice wide and spatial type of a sustain. You have some different setups in here. Oops. Deep 6. Nice, deep, wide. So, VCM stereo, but if you want a more of a kind of a vintagey sort of sound out of your EP, I will almost always choose the VCM mono phaser. It tends to have a little bit more of that sound to me. And because it's not moving around the stereo field, it gives it that more vintage sort of sound in here. Again, I just, VCM, virtual circuitry modeling, modeled the actual components of the phaser box itself. That's what VCM is all about. It's a very cool type of technology that we have in both Montage and MODX for electric pianos. Another one in here, since we're on the topic of VCM, move down in here to the wah effects. I think our wah effects are extremely cool. Touch wah is a quick one to set up. This one, the trick to this one is finding what the sensitivity is, first of all. Now myself, I'm a big fan. I like the low in here for the electric piano stuff or a clavinet. But a trick to this one, mess with the overdrive. Trust me on this. Also maybe adjust the output a bit more in here and maybe a little bit more resonance so it really wahs. It really bites. Super expressive. So the wah effects, phaser effects, chorus effects, all right here. Let's say, and remember, we haven't even discussed that we have a second insertion effect in here. Anybody that says they run out of effects on a montage, I always go, really? You know, because I just don't see how. Because remember, on a single sound, I still have two system effects I can apply to this. If I need, I want a delay, I want a chorus, I want a wah, and I want a reverb. I mean, you can, and then you have a master effect at the end of that too. So you can bring all of these effects to bear to really shape whatever sound you want. So right now, the way this is set up is, I believe I'm running insert A into B, so the output of the wah effect is going into the chorus. I can quickly change that here by just touching on how the routing works in here, and I can go B to A, so go the other direction. Now I have the chorus. And you hear a slight, significant difference. Okay, I kind of like that configuration. Or if I just want to just make them run in parallel and I want maybe some of the elements to go through different things, there's different reasons why you might want to run in parallel. And you can see over here that each of the elements can be individually routed. So if you, for whatever reason, this is what, 5 elements, right? Well, let's say element 3 for whatever reason. And you might want to do this with a drum kit, a synth sound, something like that. You want to run the effects in parallel, and you just want that one element to route through, and it gives you that cool little graphic. That's the only one that's going through the B effect now. It's that velocity layer right there. You can hear it doesn't have wah. It's the only one that doesn't. That's a weird piano sound. This could be useful. Because imagine if you had it set at a higher velocity maybe, and it only came in some weird effect or cool effect or chorusing effect only on that one element. Like you can hear it. You can hear that. You can hear just the chorus happening on just that one element at that velocity level. I mean, I could tweak this a while to figure it out, but so much creative things with this. You know, and just as a side note about Montage and MODX, I keep saying this to so many people that I've met over the years of this instrument being out, and talking to people when I say this is the coolest. There's so much you can do with it that I still am discovering different ways to use the Montage, and there is not a single synthesizer in the history of my time at Yamaha, which is over 20 years, that I've had that connection to a synthesizer. I mean, I love my motif, I love my EX, I love all the stuff that we've had in the past, but as far as really figuring out different and creative ways, because of motion control, because of the control of those effects that you can do with this instrument, is mind-boggling. I keep calling bad Mr. Phil Clendenin, and I'll say to him occasionally, man, I was just on Montage and I just did this cool thing with this effect or with this FM in conjunction with the effects, and you got to check this out. And I'm always showing him these things, and we're always bouncing these things back and forth because it's just that cool. Remember, we're going to cover some of these other things. I want to show just a couple of quick things here in the window. The envelope follower. We're going to cover the envelope follower when we talk about live effects. So taking something like an A to D input and using it as a modulation source for an effect or a filter or something like that. So cool that you can do that with Montage. And then the other thing that I did, and MODX, by the way, all you MODX people that are watching, same thing here. I didn't show this, but I'd like to quickly in the drum kit. I think, or I'm running out of time anyway, but there's just so much to show here. Let's see here. What was I? Oh, moving on. I don't want to get down this rabbit hole right now. Well, I'll just say this. You also have sidechain modulation, so you can have the compressor of assigned to something, and then a kick drum triggering that compressor, so you get that cool ducking effect. You can do that with this instrument as well. So lots of different ways to route things and do different things. I can just bring up a performance that shows that. But since I am getting to the part of the show that is the end, I'm going to show you Soundmondo. So the last part of the show here. Soundmondo, YamahaSynth.com. Go to Soundmondo. It is our free social sound sharing site. It supports all of those instruments right there. Montage, MODX, CP, YC. Very cool. Free social sound sharing. Download sounds, upload sounds, organize your sounds, all on Soundmondo. Definitely don't forget about Yamaha Synth. Again, lots of things about effects. There is an entire series, I think, a couple of articles specifically about effects for Montage and MODX up on Yamaha Synth to check out. So go to Yamaha Synth for forums, all that kind of stuff. Cool stuff. SoundCloud, we just did one of the coolest, I can't even compare these artist podcasts that we've been doing with Bro Paul Brown, with Dan Rouse, with Nick Semrad, and lately, last one we did was Will Wells, are so cool. These guys are such wonderful people. I highly recommend you checking out the Behind the Synth podcast. Like and subscribe up there. All the artist ones have been really cool, and they really have some great insights, great things to say, totally worth checking out. So please go to our SoundCloud account, like and subscribe. We just did one with Howard Massey that will be going up relatively soon, who wrote this new FM 101 series that we have up on Yamaha that's just amazing, by the guy that wrote the book that I bought in 1986 on the DX7. So Howard Massey's coming on the next Behind the Synth. We also have tons of demos up there. All the 1.4 audio demos are up there as well. The music production guide, I kept the one I put up last week since we were talking about the OS update to CP 88 and 73. That is the current one right there on the music production guide. I'm going to quickly address a Tech Talk question. There's Tech Talk questions. Links in the description if you have a question to ask. I'm going to quickly answer one right now from Donnie in the U.S. So he just got a MODX, and he actually had a link to a video, and there was a lot more. So I'm paraphrasing what he's asking here, but this is essentially it. Donnie wanted to know how you can create songs using scenes, ARPs, etc. And he was specifically pointing out a video where someone was using, I believe it was a montage, and I know that it was the Motif XF performances. So that's the first thing you need to do, Donnie, is make sure that you have the Motif XF performances in your MODX. Now, in a montage, they are part of the presets, okay? But on the MODX, you have to download them. So how would you do that? Well, here's my my web browser here, Yamaha Synth. I am live here. So I would just literally go MODX. Well, I already did this once before, but it's the downloads right here. If you just put MODX downloads, you will find that Google will get you to the link to this area here. So this is for the MODX. Now you look at all the stuff in here, all the updates all the way down here. Keep moving down until you go to other downloads and select this one right here. So what this is are the Motif XF performances that are already in this montage after, I think, OS 3. I think that was when we added them. So they're already in here as presets. But if you want them for the MODX, download them and load them in as a library file, and they kind of become part of the preset. The way that libraries work is, they are in their own special memory area, so you can always have access to them, and then you can bring them over to the user area if you want to change them and do some stuff with them. But download those, and that is exactly where you will find all those ARPs, all those cool performances that guy was playing. They were all from the Motif XF. And then, just to give you an idea, real quick, I'm running out of time, but I do want to show this. Category search. How you're going to find this is on my, it'll show up here if you load in as a library. You see the libraries I have installed: Montage Expanded, Bosendorfer, Fat Analog, some of the stuff from Easy Sounds are there. Motif XF is already in the Montage, so you'll easily find it there. But when you load that library into your MODX, you'll see it as Motif XF as one of those libraries. And when you select that, that's all you're going to see here are just these libraries. So I'm not sure which one the guy was playing here, but I'll just move through these and see what we got. How about this one? Let's just see what does Purple Stone give me. Okay, so this isn't. So that's straight up from the Motif XF. So you want to record this stuff. You literally, what you should do is touch play record, okay, and drop into the pattern mode here, okay. And I have a new pattern. As soon as you hit the record, well, here, let me do it this way. Hitting record definitely sets you up in a brand new pattern. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to call this. We're in scene 3 right now, okay. Or I can go to scene 1 if I want. Well, let's move it back one level. Here, hold on. Let's do this. I want to start at scene 1. Let me see what. Okay, what's scene 2? Okay, I guess scene 3 does have the groove. Okay, we do want scene 2. So, or scene 3. Hit record, and we're in play record here, right? Length of 4 bars. A trick to this when you're using all the ARPs that you want to record with that you were asking about is turn off the loop the first time you record them so it doesn't come back around and re-record the arpeggios. And I generally will turn on key on start when I do this, but let's just start and I'll put in a nice. And it will stop after 4 measures, right? Okay, now I'll probably turn off key on start and hit play, and it records those directly in. Except it caught one of my. I think it caught my note. Yeah, it caught one of my notes. Don't like it, you can record it again and have it work perfectly. But you get the idea. So now I can start adding new tracks to this. Add a guitar track if I want to, single parts and so on. But I think the first thing that you should do is experiment with getting those Motif XF performances for your MODX. That will be a great thing for you. You'll enjoy it, and you'll be able to find the Latin performances that are in there pretty easily. So hopefully that helps. That answers a little bit, gives you at least the guideposts to find your way to cool MODX performances. Hey, so this is just the beginning of this effects thing that we're getting into. It's a big topic. It's a cool topic. Next week, I believe we're doing live performance, effects for live performance. Then we'll be covering things on using the ADD input a little bit more. So it's kind of the live part 2 version of it. And then we're going to show just the effects that we use for synthesis and some of the cool ways that effects can be used. Once again, this is Blake Angelo, synthesizer product specialist for Yamaha here in the United States. Thank you so much for watching. Tune in next week on Tech Talk Live, and have a great one. Thanks for watching. See ya.